Building owners are now required to display a certificate of energy performance at the entrance. The new regulation was gazetted by government at the end of last year. The South African National Energy Development Institute will oversee submissions, and the certificate will be valid for 5 years. Barry Bredenkamp, the general manager of the institution, joins me now to explain. Thank you very much, Barry, for your time. So what are the objectives of the regulations?
Good evening, first of all, and thank you very much for the opportunity. The regulations that were issued by the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy have been a long time in the making. They've been in the development phase and pilot phase for about 10 years now. It is in line with international best practice. Energy performance certificates are commonplace in virtually all countries all over the world, have been for some time now. The main aim is for people to visualize their actual energy consumption in relation to the energy performance of the building. So, right now, most people, the electricity bill or the energy bill will end up with the chief financial officer and be paid, or go to the facilities manager. And they either say, well, this bill is expensive or it's not expensive, but it's got nothing to compare against. With the energy performance certificate, you have to look at occupancy, you have to look at climate, you have to look at energy, you have to look at square meterage, and you then get to a grading system from A to G, where D is the benchmark of a best practice building. Anything below that will indicate that, although you might be thinking your building is good or energy efficient, it will actually show you visually that your building is not performing very well. And similarly, if you're above a D, let's say A, B, or C, and you're complaining about a very high bill, you will be able to realize that although the cost might be high in terms of your business, that your energy performance is actually doing very well in relation to the benchmark building, which is the D grading on this scale.
So this does not apply to residential buildings. So which buildings do these regulations apply to?
Yes, so at this stage, it definitely does not apply to residential buildings. I think we will get there. We see, in places like France, residential buildings, they've got energy performance certificates all the way down to residential buildings, which are mandatory. So before you can sell your house, like in South Africa, where you need a certificate of compliance about the safety of your electricity, you need to have an energy performance certificate. The South African government decided to start somewhere, not just pile everything onto everyone at once. So they've listed certain categories of occupancy, or lists of certain categories of buildings in the building regulations to start with, and then for the first 2 years. And then over time, this will progress and extend to other buildings. Right now, the main buildings that are included in the regulations are buildings that are used for entertainment and public assembly, which, given the COVID situation, is not much of a factor. But one of the very important ones are places of instruction. So, schools, universities, any place where instruction happens, they need to have the certificate within the next 2 years. And then offices. Offices are by far the biggest contributor to around about 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions contribution in South Africa. And offices are clearly defined in the regulations, and that includes banks, consulting rooms, and other similar buildings, and they need to have the certificate by December 2022.
So it's all working towards a greener South Africa, and we have established that certificate will be valid for 5 years. But what will it cost someone to get that process rolling, to get that certificate and be compliant?
Yes, so that would depend on the size of the building, the type and nature of the building, the equipment that's used. But there will be a cost, because someone has to come out and actually assess this building. They have to look at the energy consumption, look at the size of the building, review the building plans and so on. So that would be a cost, but the cost should be negligible in relation to what your overall energy spend would be. This also gives you the indication to say, well, if you are performing badly, then you would need to bring someone in to improve the building performance, so to look at the air conditioning or the lighting or the hot water or whatever technologies you have in the building. So it will give you an indication of what you need to do to improve, and you will want to aspire to all becoming an A-rated building at some time. And that would obviously have some cost. But what we're finding, and with all the inquiries we've received since the regulation being proposed, is that although you need an accredited person to come and actually do the final assessment, you can get anyone. It could be the facility managers, it could be someone in the building, it could be graduate students that are looking for practical work, interns, that can go and gather all the data that's required to model the building and to do that certificate. And that's where we believe huge numbers of jobs will be created through the introduction of this EPC regulation. Much needed jobs in South Africa. And they would then pass on all the data to an accredited person who would just run the model and determine the certificate.
Barry, we've almost run out of time. Quickly, before I let you go, will there be penalties for those who do not or refuse to comply?
The regulations have made provision for penalties after the 2-year period for non-compliance. What that penalty is has not been defined yet because we've still got 2 years to work on it. But the National Energy Act does make provision for the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy to impose any penalty he deems appropriate at any given time should there be non-compliance with the certificate. And hopefully that will be the last resource.
Well, thank you very much for that clarification. Barry Bredenkamp is the General Manager of South African National Energy Development Institute.